Who really held control in the Brown family? In the saga of Sister Wives, the most compelling drama was never just about marriage. It was about power. And while much of the spotlight landed on Kody Brown as the family patriarch, the deeper story was woven from influence, emotional leverage, financial contributions, and shifting loyalty. So who really held the power in the Brown family? Kody Brown. A leader by permission. From the beginning, Kody presented himself as the leader, the center of a wheel with his wives as the spokes. But this wasn't a monarchy. His power, while pronounced, was not absolute. It was conditional. It was power granted by emotional investment. Each wife, in her own way, sought connection with him, time, presence, affection. And that gave him the ability to guide the family's direction through influence rather than authority. Kody's real power came not from commands, but from selective presence. By choosing where and how to show up emotionally and physically, he could impact family dynamics without ever raising his voice. But this style of leadership had its limits. When the emotional currency wore thin, so did his control. Robyn. Influence through proximity. Robyn, the newest addition to the Brown family, has often been viewed as a key player in the power shift that eventually fractured the family. But the truth is more layered than many viewers realize. Robyn's power wasn't structural. It wasn't legal or financial. Her strength came from her influence over Kody, who increasingly prioritized her presence and perspective. In a family built on the ideal of equality, this unspoken favoritism created an imbalance that grew more obvious with time. Some saw Robyn as orchestrating the shift, but a more accurate reading may be that she simply adapted to the dynamic that was forming and benefited from it. Mary. Legal leverage and emotional complexity. As Kody's first wife, Mary initially held a unique position. She was the only one with a legal marriage to him. This gave her not just symbolic importance, but real financial and legal leverage within the family. For a time, that structure gave her influence. But as the emotional connection between her and Kody frayed, her power diminished, until, at one point, the family asked her to legally divorce Kody so that he could marry Robyn and adopt her children. The move, painted publicly as a loving sacrifice, was also a major turning point in the family's internal balance. Mary's legal role was dissolved, and with it, her structural influence. Still, Mary carried emotional weight, especially as the public became increasingly sympathetic to her journey of self-worth and rediscovery. Janelle, the financial force. Janelle's role in the family was rooted in practicality. With a background in finance and a steady work ethic, she was often the primary breadwinner in the early years. Her contributions were essential to keeping the large family afloat. But as the family's financial status improved, thanks to their show and other opportunities, her centrality in the household dynamic seemed to shift. As others began to contribute more visibly to the shared pot, Janelle's influence, like Mary's, appeared to recede. Still, she remained one of the most independent and rational voices in the family, a grounding force in the chaos. Christine, the heart of the family. If Janelle was the financial engine, Christine was the emotional glue. She took on the role of caretaker, not just for her own children, but for many of the Brown family's kids. She fed, taught, and raised an entire generation within the family home. Her work may not have been easily quantified, but its value was enormous. And perhaps it was because her contributions were so often taken for granted that she eventually chose to leave. Christine's exit wasn't just a personal decision, it was a statement. She had given decades of service and care, and was no longer willing to be sidelined. Her departure signaled the unraveling of the emotional fabric that had once held the Browns together. Pre-show versus post-show power. Before Sister Wives hit the airwaves, the Brown family operated on survival and shared necessity. There were many mouths to feed and too few resources to go around. In that version of the family, everyone played a role out of necessity. It wasn't always fair, but it functioned. The show changed everything. Financial security came with fame, and with that came the luxury of individualism. The wives, once tethered by survival, began to see themselves not just as parts of a machine, but as individuals with options. That shift, paired with Kody's growing attachment to Robyn, turned an already delicate balance into a slow-motion beneficiary, not architect. Robyn's arrival in the family often gets cast as the catalyst for its unraveling. But in truth, she wasn't the architect, she was the accelerant. The family was already stretched thin. Resentments were already simmering. Her entry simply exposed the cracks that had long been forming. And while she undeniably played a role in supporting Kody's growing distance from the original three wives, she didn't force his hand. That was a choice he made himself. The real shift came when Kody started to prioritize his bond with Robyn over maintaining balance with the rest of the family. Whether consciously or not, Robyn became the confidant, the constant, the only wife whose needs and presence seemed to guide his decisions. The core truth: power was always relational. The Brown family never had a singular source of power. Each adult held influence in different ways. Miri had legal leverage and emotional endurance. Janelle had economic utility and practicality. Christine held the emotional loyalty of the children and fans alike. Robyn had the ear and heart of Kody. And Kody? His power was conditional, always based on the willingness of others to follow. Once that willingness faded, so did his control. Conclusion: not a coup, but a collapse. So, was Robyn pulling the strings, or did Kody simply hand them to her? The answer may lie somewhere in between. She didn't take control by force, but she accepted the role he offered, fully and without apology. And when the other wives began stepping away from the dynamic, Robyn remained, holding a family structure that no longer really existed. In the end, the downfall of the Brown family wasn't a dramatic betrayal or a singular act of sabotage. It was the slow erosion of unity under the weight of unmet needs, shifting loyalties, and uneven influence. And while some still see Robyn as the one who won, others understand a deeper truth. This wasn't a game to win. It was a family to preserve, and no amount of influence, affection, or camera time could keep it from slipping away once the foundation cracked. The secret power struggles behind Sister Wives. For years, viewers of Sister Wives believed they were watching a large, complicated family navigate the ups and downs of plural marriage. But behind the matching smiles and joint confessionals, power shifted in subtle, sometimes invisible ways, like cloaks passed from one pair of shoulders to another in dimly lit hallways of control. The myth of equal wives. The original premise of the Brown family was that love and responsibility could be equally divided. Kody Brown stood at the center, the self-declared patriarch, while Mary, Janelle, and Christine made up the foundation of the family unit. But even in early seasons, tiny cracks hinted at deeper divides. Who made the decisions? Who had Kody's ear? Who truly influenced the family's direction? The answer was never as simple as Kody leads, and the wives follow. Power in the Brown family wasn't always formal. It was often emotional, financial, or symbolic. And as new factors entered the mix, especially in the form of a fourth wife and a reality TV spotlight, the fragile balance began to shift. Mary, the first wife's silent leverage. Mary, the legal wife for over 2 decades, had a type of power no one else did: legal authority. In the beginning, that meant more than just paperwork. She was often the gatekeeper of certain family decisions. able to sign documents and speak for the group in official matters. But as time wore on, her emotional connection with Kody frayed. After personal heartbreak and well-documented struggles, Miri's influence waned in the public eye. Yet behind the scenes, the symbolic weight of her role, and the quiet knowledge that she once had the power to walk away and legally dissolve the family, remained a silent form of control. Janelle, the quiet provider. Janelle wasn't flashy. She didn't seek the spotlight. But when it came to finances, she was a powerhouse. With a head for business and a steady job history, she brought real economic stability during times when the family needed it most. Her influence came not from charisma or romantic favor, but from being the logistical backbone. She managed budgets, property details, and later, held part ownership in family land. In private moments, family members often turned to Janelle for guidance, not because she demanded it, but because she earned their respect through quiet consistency. Yet Janelle's power had an expiration date. As fame and external income from the show changed the family's structure, her financial role became less central. Over time, Kody's perception shifted, seeing her not as essential, but as optional. It wasn't a reflection of her value, but of a man slowly prioritizing emotional affirmation over practical partnership. Christine, the keeper of the heart. If Janelle was the structure, Christine was the soul. She raised children with warmth and deep maternal intuition. Her influence lay in emotional connection, especially with the kids. She cooked, comforted, and created a sense of home. And while her contributions couldn't always be quantified in spreadsheets, they were undeniably critical. Christine's influence extended through the children, many of whom gravitated to her even as tensions with Kody increased. But Christine, too, began to see the imbalance. Her love and labor didn't equate to mutual respect. As she watched Kody grow closer to Robyn and more distant from the family's original vision, she made a bold decision to leave. In doing so, she reclaimed power not through confrontation, but through liberation. Robyn, the new wife with new influence. Enter Robyn. Her arrival marked a turning point, not just emotionally, but structurally. Though she entered as the fourth wife, over time she became central to Kody's emotional world. Eventually, she became his only legal wife, a move that changed everything. Critics often accused her of taking over, but the truth was more nuanced. Robyn didn't seize control with force. She gained influence through proximity. Kody trusted her, confided in her, leaned on her. Her opinions became his decisions. And as his relationship with the other wives deteriorated, Robyn's presence solidified. She didn't replace the others. She simply remained when they had all grown tired of being sidelined. Whether intentional or not, Robyn became a symbol of consolidation. With her by his side, Kody no longer needed to divide his attention. He no longer had to balance. The harmony he once praised in plural marriage became a chorus of one. Kody, the hub that lost the spokes. In the early days, Kody described himself as the hub of a wheel, with each wife a spoke. It was a metaphor meant to explain unity, but over time it exposed a hierarchy. Kody's power depended on cooperation. The wives had to want his attention for him to hold sway. When they stopped competing for it, when they began seeking self-respect instead, his structure collapsed. His vision of leadership required obedience, not autonomy. And when that obedience faded, so did his grip. By the later seasons, Kody's role had transformed. From beloved patriarch to embattled figurehead, he struggled with control not because it was taken from him, but because it was no longer given. The show that changed everything. Sister Wives itself acted as a power magnifier. It brought visibility, money, and scrutiny. And with it came change. Fame allowed each wife to imagine a life outside the compound. Viewers cheered for Christine's independence, respected Janelle's resolve, sympathized with Mary's loneliness, and debated Robyn's role in it all. What had once been a shared vision turned into a series of individual journeys. The show offered a mirror, and each family member saw a different reflection. The illusion of control. In the end, the Brown family power dynamic was never static. It shifted with emotion, finances, legal structures, and time. What seemed like control was often just temporary influence, sometimes willingly handed over, other times quietly reclaimed. The wives held power in different ways. Mary through legality and legacy. Janelle through logic and longevity. Christine through heart and history. Robyn through presence and persuasion. And Kody, he held the illusion of centrality, unaware that true leadership requires more than declarations. It requires reciprocity. Where they stand now. Today, the original dream lies in fragments. The wives have walked different paths, some toward love, others toward peace. Kody remains with Robyn, in a version of the family that now feels more like a traditional marriage than a plural one. But perhaps that's the final lesson in the power struggle. When people feel truly seen, they don't need control. They need respect. And when that's missing, even the strongest cloaks of authority can't keep a family from unraveling. Final thought. Control in the Brown family was never about who yelled the loudest or who wore the title of leader. It was about who stayed centered when everything shifted, who adapted, who walked away, and who finally chose themselves. Because in the end, control isn't always power. Sometimes the real power is knowing when to let go.